If you like horror, hit that notification bell, smash that like button, and push that subscribe button now.
What's the boogeyman?
Hello, Sydney.
Welcome to my nightmare. We want the man who did this.
Welcome to Nick Push's Horror Channel.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Nick Push. Happy Monday. We're talking Batman Returns tonight. Should be a fun one. This is a very, very interesting movie to talk about. This was chosen by you, the viewers, from last week. Last week we did, Freddy's Dead, and that was a slog to get through, but it was fun. Even, that movie's so shitty that there's a lot to talk about with it, so it was pretty entertaining to go through. Tonight, like I said, talking Batman Returns. Got a lot of good choices for our poll tonight when we're going to be doing 1993 movies next week. So we got 4 movies that I'm going to put up in a moment. But first, let's see who we got go in the chat here. Chris Fantasy Magic Man. Chris, I have a special video just for you every time I see you. This is what I think of, man. That's just what I think of, dude. It's just what I think of. No, Chris is a member of the channel. Thank you, Chris. In the next few days, I'll have your video out. Chris chose the top 10 remakes, reboots, and requels. So I'm busy preparing that. But yeah, so Chris, thanks for showing up. Ivy, how you doing? Nice to see you again. Shape of Horror podcast also in the house, as well as the Shape 78. What's up, guys? How's it going? James Morant. James says, I had a great time at Monster Mania. Ooh, James, how was Monster Mania? I know you said you had a great time, but was there a lot of good guests there? Diamond Rattler also in the house. What's up, Diamond? How's it going? Thanks for joining me tonight, everybody. Before we get into talking Batman Returns, I'm going to put a poll up right now, and we're going to have your choices on the movie I'm going to talk about next week. So, bear with me here because YouTube, as great as it is, sometimes it stinks because it doesn't let me pre-prepare these polls, so I got to type this in live. But here we go. So, this Batman Returns 1992. We have already done It miniseries from 1990. We have done Freddy's Dead last week from 1991. You guys chose Batman Returns from the list last week. This week, our options are, or I should say for next week, our options are Jurassic Park, The Fugitive, one of my favorite movies of all time, The Sandlot, another classic, and I gotta obviously throw a horror movie in there. And much like Freddy's Dead, this one would be interesting, and it is Jason Goes to Hell. So, let me put these in here. Jurassic Park, Fugitive, Sandlot, Jason Goes to Hell. All right, poll is up if you guys want to vote on what I will be talking about next week, Monday. Feel free. Let's see who else here. Allie's here. Allie, since you're a channel member, I got a special clip for you too. This is what I think of when I see you.
All clear.
Nothing above, nothing below.
I'm kidding, Allie. I'm kidding. But that I had to prepare something for you because I knew you'd be here. Let's check out, before we get into Batman Returns, let's check out the early results on this poll, and then we're going to start talking about this movie. Much like the previous couple weeks, I'm going to switch screens here in a second, and we are going to talk about our MVP, LVP, best scene, all that. I'll explain in a minute, but let's see the early results on this poll. Oops, hold on. Jurassic Park and The Fugitive and Jason Goes to Hell are all tied. So this will be interesting. Nothing for The Sandlot yet, but could be interesting. There's a lot of variety in this poll. So, like I said, those are some of my favorite movies. As much as the early 90s sucks ass for horror movies, it really fucking does, by the way. As much as it sucks ass for horror movies, there's a lot of great movies in the early 90s, like non-horror movies. So I'm kind of hoping we go non-horror. But if Jason Goes to Hell wins, I'm fine with that too, because there's a lot to talk about with that movie. So, let's talk a little bit here about Batman Returns, and then we'll get into the categories I'm ranking it on. This is a fascinating movie, okay? So, we know in 1989, Tim Burton kind of captivated the nation and, made superhero movies, made the blueprint for superhero movies, what they are today with Batman 89, right? Well, a sequel came 3 years later, and people love this movie. And I like it a lot too. But there is a lot of issues with this movie that I don't think people talk about too often. So do the positives outweigh the negatives? We'll see. There's so many things in this movie that are great, but there's certain subtle things that kind of bring it down for me. So yeah, we're just gonna get into it. Let's get into it. Before I switch screens and we talk about MVP, LVP, all that, little channel update here, guys. Tomorrow night, I am going to be, me and Bud from the Shape of Horror podcast are going to be debuting a new show that we're starting. It's going to start out at least bi-weekly. It'll be twice a month for sure, maybe more. We'll see how it goes. But we're calling it Take It to the Grave. You can see the logo right below me. We're going to switch off channels between Bud's channel and my channel. Tomorrow night is going to be my channel. Tomorrow night we're going to be talking top 10 moments from the David Gordon Green Halloween trilogy. So I know everyone loves it when I talk about Halloween. It's funny. I get I get a lot of viewers when it's a Halloween topic or a screen topic, and then I talk about something like It or Batman Returns, and nobody cares. That's okay. I like talking about other shit. But Halloween, everyone loves to talk about Halloween, right? I've had some streams where we've had like over 80 people in here talking Halloween, which is awesome. That might not seem a lot for some of the bigger channels out there, but for my channel, that is awesome. So we're excited to debut our new show. So make sure, if you're not already, you're subscribed to Bud's channel, the Shape of Horror podcast. He is in here in the chat, so go find him and click on his link and subscribe to his channel. But let's switch screens, guys, and let's get right into this. As usual, we have the following categories, which I'm going to go over for this. We have our MVP. We have our LVP. Those are the most valuable person, least valuable person in this movie. Like I said before, it could be an actor. It could be a character. It could be, a director, casting director. Could be a lot of things for these. Best scene and worst scene, self-explanatory. What I think is the best scene in the movie. What I think is the worst scene in this movie. Unsung hero, someone that I think is integral to this movie that doesn't get a lot of credit. Then we got our funniest moment, our dumbest moment, and then I'm going to rate the movie. If you want to put your own answers to these categories in the chat as I'm going through, go ahead. I'm going to read it as we go. Speaking of the chat, before we name MVPs, let's continue here. Let's see what we got going on here. I'm going to check the poll. So far, we have Jurassic Park in the lead, beating The Sandlot, which has taken second place. Jason Goes to Hell in third, and The Fugitive. Come on, guys. I want The Fugitive to win. But no, whatever you guys want, whatever the consensus is of these four movies is what we'll talk about. So, Shape78 says he's watching Jurassic Park right now on is that what it is? Sci-Fi. Ivy's voting for The Fugitive. Scott is here. What's up, Scott? How you doing, buddy? Ellie says she loves Jurassic Park and The Sandlot, so it's a tough one. Fantazi goes with the worst horror movie ever. If that wins, Chris, you'll see my thoughts on it. Jason Goes to Hell is bad, but I do have a little nostalgia for it. It's interesting for me, but I knew it's bad. Ivy says do one for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'm actually a big Buffy fan, Ivy. So I'd definitely be down to talk Buffy sometime. Allie says, who am I supposed to be in that, Nick? That could have been my theme song after trivia last night. Yeah, I heard you struggled a little bit, Allie, over on trivia on Jake Blaster's channel. If you guys like trivia, Jake Blaster on Jake Blaster Productions and Bud, who's my partner in crime on Take It to the Grave, they are doing a trivia show. Last night it was on Jake Blaster's channel. So make sure you go check that out. They did Die Hard trivia last night. And Jake and Bud do a great job on that. Jake's good at all that trivia stuff. So he always puts on a good show. And Bud obviously does a great job too. Let's continue here. Ronnie from All the Good Names Are Taken podcast with the super chat. Damn it, Ronnie. Now I got to mark down that I owe you $1.99 because Blake paid me back last week for what I sent you. YouTube's being happy, but Ronnie says Bull Hurley and Fat Guy from Roadhouse are in this. Are they? Are they like some of the circus goons maybe? They gotta be, right? They gotta be. I know Big Show's in this as one of the circus goons. So yeah, Bull Hurley and the Fat Guy from Roadhouse. Yeah. I know. Now I can picture the Fat Guy from Roadhouse. He's got like clown makeup on and shit. That's right. Blake says, Nick, is the yellow bat symbol your favorite? I think it's definitely the most iconic. Is it my favorite? Probably. I think probably. So yeah. All right. So let's get right into this, guys. We're gonna talk MVP to start. If you have your MVP of this movie, put it in the chat. We'll talk about it. So we're going to get rid of this, and we're going to answer for my MVP of this movie. This was an easy decision, guys. Very easy decision for me. It's Michelle Pfeiffer. For me, there's a lot of characters in this movie, and we're going to be talking about all of them. But a lot of characters in this movie, but I think Michelle Pfeiffer steals the fucking show. I think she is phenomenal. You know, it's funny. Before she turns into Catwoman, you know, she's supposed to be this meek, nerdy, ugly, secretary, right, for Max Schreck, Christopher Walken's character. And then she gets killed by Max Schreck and becomes Catwoman, and all of a sudden, you know, she's this beautiful badass. All they did was put glasses on Michelle Pfeiffer, so it's just funny. Does that work? Yes, it does. I just think it's funny that they put glasses on Michelle Pfeiffer and expected her to be this like meek, ugly person. But yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer is absolutely phenomenal in this movie. With all the characters and the Tim Burtonisms going on in this movie, I think she stands out more than anyone. And I think it was the Shape 78 said something about Michelle Pfeiffer being much better than the Halle Berry version. Where is it here? Uptown Funk said it best. Michelle Pfeiffer is white gold. Yeah, man, she is excellent in this movie. And I've never been a huge Catwoman guy, but when I think of Catwoman, I think of Michelle Pfeiffer, and you know, I just think she's spectacular. There's so many good scenes with her and Batman and her and Penguin. A couple characters we're going to talk about in a little bit. Her and Max Schreck are awesome. You know, she's just great in this. You know, her transformation is great. She gets pushed out that window, and you know, do these cats have like regenerative powers? You know, where they swimming around in Max Schreck's toxic sludge or something, and then they brought her back to life, or what? But yeah, and then you know the scene where she goes back to her apartment and fucking loses her mind, and she starts putting like stuffed animals in the garbage disposal, and you know, starts throwing shit at the mirror. Fucking fantastic. So for me, Michelle Pfeiffer is my MVP. All right, let's see who your MVPs are. Christopher Fantazzi, his MVP with a $2 super chat. Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate it. You are the man. Really, really appreciate that, buddy. He says Chip is the MVP. Chip is what's his face? Max Schreck's son. Yeah, Chip's kind of a comic relief character. His he is pretty. He's got like subtle humor in this. You know, he's a good kid too. He's kind of looking out for his dad. You know, when Penguin's goons come and they're looking for Shrek at the beginning. You know, Chip tells him to go, and then you know, Max, you know, is led kind of right into the Penguin's lair. But Chip's a good character. Great name too, Chip. That is awesome. So Chip is Chris Fantazi's MVP. Chris, thanks for the super chat, buddy. Really appreciate it. All right, let's see if anyone else has any MVPs in here. All right, let's see here. Allie's is Catwoman as well. So same wavelength there, Allie. James Morant as well, choosing Catwoman. Ivy says it's the taser stun gun for me. Yeah, that when she grabs that taser, that kind of started her, you know, transformation. It showed that she kind of always has that in her because she's been being pushed around, you know, her whole life. Ronnie from All the Good Names Are Taken podcast, his MVP is Michael Keaton. Yeah, Michael Keaton, I'm going to talk about him in a moment here. Michael Keaton is Batman for a lot of us, you know, especially if you're, you know, in your 30s, 40s, even 50s probably, or even late 20s maybe, you know. Late 20s might be more of like a Nolan Batman guy, so your Batman might be what's his face, but yeah, Michael Keaton. When I think of Batman, I still think of Michael Keaton. I think he's great. All right. Oops, sorry about that. Shape78 says, just saw on Twitter recently a video of Pfeiffer doing the bullwhip cut, cutting the heads off 4 mannequins on the first take, and everyone applauded. The first take, did she? Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I know she was training herself to do this. That wasn't a stunt person using that whip, which is pretty impressive. Chris says that was a joke. I know it was a joke, Chris. I know. Chip's a good character. Like he does his job. So yeah. Blake says, did you know Knox died in the original? Knox played Arliss, so that was Vicky Vale's boss, right? No, I did not know that. I knew they were going to have Vicky Vale in this at first, or they had, you know, she was in the script at first, but I did not know that Arliss was going to be in this. That's one thing I do like too about this movie is, you know, Michael Keaton, or Bruce Wayne I should say, mentions when he's on the couch with Michelle Pfeiffer before they start, you know, making out, he actually mentions Vicky Vale by name, and that kind of keeps these movies together. When you get into some of the Schumacher films here, they don't even acknowledge that these films existed. They're all just kind of on their own. I like that Vicky Vale was mentioned. I like that Keaton's talking about, or Bruce Wayne's talking about how, you know, it just didn't work out. So I like that. All right, LVP time. This is where everyone hates me. Okay? If you have an LVP, your least valuable person, and it's tough with this movie, I'm not going to lie. If you have a least valuable person, put it in the chat. By no means do you have to. But for me, my LVP of this movie, I'm sorry guys, it's Batman. Let me explain. I just acknowledged that I love Michael Keaton as Batman. I think Keaton is great in this movie. But I think the character of Batman is kind of wasted in this movie. And I'll explain in a second. Okay? So, Batman doesn't really have an arc in this movie. He shows up at the beginning, okay? And then 20 minutes or so passes, and he shows up again, and he's just reactive with everything in this movie. He has no character arc in this movie at all. It's just Michael Keaton, or I should say Bruce Wayne and Batman trying to stop the villains. And this is a story. This is a movie about these villains, okay? About Catwoman and Penguin. Michael Keaton is great as Batman, like I said. But I just don't think Batman has much to do in this. Yes, there are scenes of him, you know, taking on Penguin, taking on Catwoman, right? Bruce Wayne has some arc in this. You know, as far as, you know, that speech I was talking about earlier where him and Vicky Vale, where he mentions Vicky Vale. But I don't think Batman as a character, not talking about Bruce Wayne, but Batman as a character, you know, does not have an arc. And it's unfortunate because because the symbolism of what happened to him and what happened to Oswald Cobblepot, Penguin, you kind of have polar opposites there. So, Bruce Wayne, his parents died, right? So he was an orphan. But he had all this, for lack of a better word, I hate to use the word privilege because that's been made too fucking political these days. But for all intents and purposes, he had all this privilege because he had all this goddamn money, right? He had Alfred. So you have that side of an orphan. And then you have Oswald, who was dumped in the river by Pee Wee Herman, who obviously Tim Burton had play the father because he directed Pee-wee's Big Adventure, so he knew the actor. And he was dumped in a sewer with nothing, raised by penguins, I presume. So it's just interesting. They could have done something. There should have been an arc to that, but it was just Batman being reactive to what's going on. Oswald shows up. He knows something's wrong. He's investigating a little bit, and then Oswald is becoming mayor through Max Schreck and all that, and he's reactive to that. Catwoman shows up. He's reactive to that. I think they needed to do more with Batman in this movie. LVP doesn't mean Batman is horrible, but for me, he just wasn't as valuable to this movie as he should have been. Not Michael Keaton's fault. I personally blame the script writing, but this does not feel like a Batman movie to me. Okay? This feels like, and you've probably heard people say this before, and I agree with it, this feels like a Tim Burton movie with Batman in it. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. This is a great movie. A very good movie. But it's not the best Batman movie. Okay? I would kind of compare it to, and this is probably a horrible comparison, but if you're looking for a horror comparison, I'd probably compare it to Wes Craven's New Nightmare in the fact that that's not a great Freddy movie, but it's a good horror movie. This is a good superhero movie. This is a great Tim Burton movie. It's just not the best Batman movie for me. I think they could have done more with his character, and it sucks. It's the last time we saw Keaton as Batman. Until the trailer for The Flash a month and a half ago or whatever. But Batman is my LVP of this movie, so I'm going to duck and cover, and let's look at the chat. If anyone has any LVPs, make sure you put it in there, and I will read it. Allie's LVP, Max Schreck. I'm actually not a big Christopher Walken guy, but Schreck was alright. I thought Christopher Walken did great playing Schreck, but yeah, Max Schreck is not likable at all. But Christopher Walken plays him well, so I completely get why he's the LVP. Chris Fantazzi says Chip is his LVP, so he Chris Chip is his MVP and LVP. I'm kidding. I know you were joking with Chip as your MVP, but Chip, Chip. I love the name Chip. I don't know what it is. Ivy says, can we talk about the ballroom scene where they exchange words saying something without saying it identifies? Yeah, I love that scene. So that's a scene where a mistletoe is hanging above Bruce Wayne and Michelle Pfeiffer, and it was hanging above them earlier, and they finish each other's sentences, but the opposite. So Bruce says what Catwoman said earlier, and Catwoman says Selina says what Batman said earlier. So then at that moment they know who they are. So I think that's a great scene. I thought it was a great way to do it. Even Selina says, do we need to start fighting? So I thought that was a good scene. Ronnie says his LVP is the Ice Princess. Yeah, what a dolt she was. Absolutely ridiculous. When Penguin goes in to kind of kidnap her and frame Batman, she's like, I'm a talent scout. And she's like, oh yeah, she's just a dolt. Chris Fantazzi says, let's talk about that awesome. Oh man, Chris, I'm at a long day. I can't read this. I'm gonna be accused of being illiterate for not being able to read this. Let's talk about that awesome Seo Sexy and Banshee song. I don't know that band. I'm assuming it's a band. I don't know what song you're talking about, unfortunately. Sorry about that. Ronnie says Burton was more fascinated with the villains. Yes, he absolutely was. And part of that is this is DC, right? DC is known for having awesome villains, Marvel is known for having shitty villains, right? So when a DC movie happens, you know, the directors are fascinated with the villains. When a Marvel movie happens, they're focused a little more on the superheroes. I think it's just DC has so many more villains, and then, you know, Tim Burton, like you said, was just fascinated by them. James Moran says, well, there are so many characters in this movie, they usually just focus on the villains, just like the first movie. Yeah, Joker had a big arc in the first movie as well. So I can see it. I get it. I get it. Let's see what else we got. Shape of Horror Podcast says this LVP is the Penguin. Yeah, I have some thoughts on the Penguin. I'm gonna get to him because he is in one of my other categories. I get what you're saying, bud. So we're gonna talk. We're gonna talk about him in a minute here, or in a few minutes here. Fantasy said it was in the ballroom scene, that song. Okay, cool. Yeah, that was a good song. Lane Frost. Who's Lane Frost, bud? I don't know who that is. Okay, let's get to the best scene, guys. I'm gonna play a clip here of what my best scene is. Now, it's a relatively long clip, so kind of like I did last week, unfortunately, I am going to have to be pausing this a few separate times throughout this so YouTube doesn't shut my ass down. When I did it last week with Freddy's Dead, it worked. YouTube dinged the fuck out of me. I don't care if they ding me, I just don't want the stream to get shut down. So, my best scene here, let me get this off here. 8 seconds, Allie? Well, this is a lot longer than 8 seconds, so I don't care about getting dinged. Like I said, like if I can't monetize this video, I don't give a fuck. But I care more about getting shut down and having to, you know, start over or something. So, my best scene in this movie is Catwoman in the mall. So, let's play this clip here. Okay, so it's a lot of chaos going outside. Okay, and then it cuts to Catwoman in a sporting goods store. So she ends up being in a mall essentially. Some of this I'm gonna fast forward, but I want to touch on some of these good moments here. So she is in the mall in her full getup, and this is kind of where we see her unleashed, and this is kind of where Michelle Pfeiffer kind of gets to kind of go nuts a little bit here with the character. And it goes back to what Shape 78 was saying earlier with this scene here. So I'm going to get to the chat in a second. Now I'm curious. Ronnie says Nick has no idea what y'all are talking about. Yeah, probably that song. Okay, let's keep watching. Let's watch Catwoman unleash herself here, because I think this is the best scene of the movie. Boom. Boom. Look how much fun Michelle Pfeiffer is having here. Look how much fun she is having. You know, big smile. Look at the way she's using the whip here. Like, the fact that this is actually Michelle Pfeiffer is pretty impressive here. So let's continue a little bit. She just takes all their heads off, and then pause it for a second because of fucking YouTube. Again, but she takes all their heads off, and now she's kind of looking for somewhere else in this mall to make mischief. And what does she do? She jump ropes with the whip. It's just great. And she's like smashing shit. All right, and this is a big part of the best scene. I love. I love what these two security officers say. So we're gonna continue a little bit here, and sorry if I have to keep pausing, but I want to kind of explain while this is going on why this is my best scene.
Who is she? What is she? I don't know whether to open fire or fall in love.
You poor guy.
See, I love that. I don't know whether to open fire or fall in love. That's so good, you know, because they're just enthralled with Catwoman, just like we all are in this movie. You know, it's pretty great.
Guys, always confusing your pistols with your prides.
Don't hurt a
boss lady. Our take home's less than 300.
You're overpaid. Hit the road.
I love that. Our take home's less than 300. You're overpaid. Hit the road. So good. So good. All right, I'm going to fast forward a little bit because we got... Hold on a second here. Because this is a couple minutes long here, but I got to let Blake and Ronnie are in here. Bud too. They're big wrestling fans. I got to show them the big show here. Right? I think it's the big show, right?
Go ahead, man.
Yeah. Paul White. So good. And then he throws it down there. But I want to get to... So then Catwoman comes over here. And she's causing more mischief. She's going to blow the building up. But we'll see here. I got to fast forward this so YouTube really doesn't ding me. I love this little interaction between Penguin and Batman here. It's pretty good.
Touring the riot scene. Gravely assessing the devastation. Upstanding mayor stuff.
You're not the mayor.
I love that. You're not the mayor. Like, it's so good. And then they have a little exchange here. I gotta fast forward here, or YouTube will ding me. Should have cut this up a little better, but sorry, it's a busy weekend. Hold on. Okay, so this is kind of the climactic moment here of this best scene of mine, and then I'll get to the chat here in a second because it looks like I'm being corrected on something. And Catwoman comes. Look at her quick flips. They're just...
Meow.
So good. That's so good. That is Batman and Penguin's introduction to Catwoman. So that whole scene, it's just Catwoman unleashed. It's my favorite scene in the movie, even though it's low key. You know, there's so many more epic scenes in this movie. But for me, just seeing Catwoman unleashed is kind of the highlight. It's my favorite scene of this movie. All right, I gotta check the chat here, guys. Tell me your favorite scene if you have one. First, Ronnie saying that's not Paul White. It's Bull Hurley from Over the Top. Are you sure? I'm going back. Telling you, man, it looks just like Big Show. We're going back here. Sorry. Where the hell is it? That's not Big Show? Okay, I'm gonna take Ronnie's word for it because he's a avid wrestling fan, more than I am. So yeah, I'll take your word for it. My apologies, folks. That is not Big Show. Okay, all right. Let's get back to it here. Best scene. All right. Shape 78 says there is the bullwhip scene. Yes, it is. I had to. It's my favorite in the movie. James Rand says when the Penguin hijacks the Batmobile. Yeah, that is a classic scene too. It almost looks like he's riding like one of those kiddie things that you see in like a grocery store or a mall or something like that. He's just shaking and shit. It's pretty good. And I love when Batman kind of turns the tables on him using what Penguin's saying. Ronnie says Penguin, when he realizes he no longer can control the Batmobile, is hilarious. Yeah, that's when he really starts shaking, and then Batman punches the screen. That's a good scene. Chris Fantazi says the ballroom is the best. Yeah, the ballroom has a lot going on because you have the moment I talked about earlier with Selena Kyle and Bruce Wayne dancing, and then they're about to go outside and hash it out, and then the Penguin shows up to take Chip. And then he ends up taking Max Shrek instead. All right. This is Ronnie telling me it's not Paul White. Alley Girl says, my favorite scene is when Penguin was being carried by the real penguins. Was kind of sad. Yeah, I thought that was well done. And the score during that scene is great. We'll talk about score in a little bit here. But yeah, I thought that was a great scene as well. Blake says that's Yokozuna. Okay. I'm sorry. I don't know wrestling. I shouldn't have pretended to. But I thought it was The Big Show. I still think you guys might be wrong. I'm gonna have to look on IMDb. I still think this is The Big Show. He's The Big Show to me. Damn it. But okay, I digress. All right, worst scene. Let's get off of this. Worst scene. Before we go to worst scene, let's check the poll. Let's see who's winning so far for next week. We got 18 votes, and The Sandlot has taken the lead. Oh man, I love The Sandlot. I love The Sandlot for so many reasons, but mostly because that used to be me, you know, as a kid, just playing baseball all summer long. But we'll save that for next week if The Sandlot ends up winning. All right, my worst scene. My worst scene isn't really just one scene. It's a few different scenes kind of wrapped into a capsule of a character. And what I mean by that is my worst scene is horny Penguin, I'm calling it. Why is Penguin so fucking horny in this movie? Is Danny DeVito like channeling Frank Reynolds from Always Sunny like 20 years earlier or 30 years earlier? Why? Why is he so horny? My worst scene is any scene that Penguin is acting like a horny bastard. Look at this guy. Look at how fucking grotesque this guy is. The Penguin's ugly too. Just kidding. But yeah, Danny DeVito plays the Penguin great. But he is horny this whole fucking movie. There's a scene where, you know, he's putting a pin on some girl and feeling up her breast. There's a pin where a scene where right before that he's talking about I'd love to give it to her, my flipper action or something like that. It's fucking weird. And then when the Catwoman's waiting on his bed, dear Lord, he's like sniffing her, wanting to like bathe her or some shit. He's like sniffing her feet. It's fucking weird. So my worst scene is any scene where the Penguin is acting like a horny fucker. And it's essentially most of the Penguin scenes because this whole movie he's just a horny bastard. So that's what I got for best scene. For worst scene. Let's see what you guys got. Let's see what Ronnie says. Big Show didn't shave his head till the mid 2000s. Okay, fine, I'm wrong. You're probably right though, Ronnie. I think you're right. It just pains me to admit that Ronnie is right. I'm kidding, buddy. Scott says, haven't watched Sandlot in 25 years. Oh, dude, it's so... I haven't watched it in probably 3 or 4 years. I used to watch it all the time. It's got a nostalgic place in my heart because I'm a big baseball fan. Go Brewers. But yeah, big fan of The Sandlot. Ronnie says Penguin's so horny because he has never been laid. You tell me him and those penguins didn't experiment a little bit? Maybe that's a topic for another show or another channel. Maybe that I don't know. But yeah, he's probably never been laid. You're right. But yeah, he's just horny in so many goddamn scenes. I just find it odd, and it doesn't bug me, but it's just so obvious sometimes. You know, it's always like in the peripheral that Penguin is horny. So I just find it weird. But I will say this about the Penguin. Danny DeVito is fucking fantastic in this movie as the Penguin. It's funny because in, you know, the comics and other Batman adaptations, the Penguin is like a guy that he's a guy that, you know, is like kind of a quasi gangster. You know, he's into the criminal underworld, kind of a businessman, so to speak, for criminals. But in Tim Burton's world, it is a man who is kind of raised by penguins and is shaped like a penguin. That is Tim Burton for you. That is how Tim Burton interprets the Penguin, and it 100% works for this movie. But I just think it's funny that it's like a penguin man, and Danny DeVito is maybe the only person that could play him like this. So Danny DeVito does great. Penguin's a great character. He's a classic character in this movie. We're going to talk about some of his plans and stuff at another point in time as we go through this. All right, let's see what's going on in the chat here. Chris Fantazi says Michelle Pfeiffer flying the umbrella. Oh, when Penguin like puts the umbrella around her neck, yeah. How is that umbrella powered? Well, I guess if we're talking logic, Michelle Pfeiffer was, pushed out of a 25-story building or whatever and came back to life by penguins licking her. So yeah. Ivy says, knocks her off a cliff, saved by kitty litter. And the ballroom is just iconic. Yeah, that's Saved by Kitty Litter. That's a good scene, I like that. And yeah, the ballroom's fantastic. Ellie Girl says, Rick Zumwalt is who that guy is per IMDb. Okay. So, not the Big Show. Damn it. I was wrong again. Let's see here. Ronnie says, we're seen as cats running to nibble on and create Catwoman. Yeah, that's very weird. Very Tim Burton. I don't mind the imagery there. You got a shot down on Catwoman lying there, or at that point, Selena Kyle lying there, and then you got these cats just coming out of the woodwork, so to speak, or out of the alley, and they're licking her. And it is weird. One cat's like nibbling on her finger and shit. Yeah, it's very bizarre. Let's see here. Shape of Horror Podcast says he's so horny because his dad is Pee Wee Herman. Yeah, that's good. That's a good one, bud. Yeah, Pee Wee Herman in a movie theater is definitely horny. Ellie's agrees with Ronnie. The fall was good, but the cat was too much. Chris Fantesi says, you mean Paul Rubens? Yep, that was Paul Rubens. That is the guy that plays Pee Wee Herman. He's good in. You guys ever see the movie Blow with Johnny Depp? Paul Rubens is pretty good in there. I play a guy, Derek For Real, which is a great name, by the way. Ivy says, maybe he is not laid and only eats fish. Yep, I think that would do it. That would do it for a lot of people. Okay. Unsung hero. Let's get to my unsung hero of this movie. Let me get the Penguin off of there. My unsung hero of this movie is Danny Elfman. The score to this movie is fucking fantastic. I don't think Elfman gets enough credit. And don't get me wrong, Elfman gets a lot of credit for everything he does. But in this movie, every single musical beat, I think, is absolutely perfect, or close to perfect. In the original Batman from 1989, I think the main theme steals the show, and it is an awesome main theme. Some of the best, music as far as movies go of all time, that main theme. In this movie, the main theme is great, but I think it's everything else that stands out to me. The scene we were just talking about with the cats, licking and nibbling on Catwoman in the alley there or whatever, the score to that is perfect. When Catwoman is going nuts in her apartment and, Selena's just throwing shit around, the score is great. The scene that Allie talked about earlier with the penguins carrying Danny DeVito Penguin to the water after he's died, the score to that is very, very good. It's just fantastic. So I think for me, Danny Elfman is kind of the unsung hero of this movie, because when you think of Elfman, you think of so many different movies, whether it's Beetlejuice, Batman '89, and you just kind of overlook, the other music in this movie besides the main theme. So Elfman is my unsung hero. Let's see if you guys got any. And James Morant says Penguin is more of a mob boss in the comics and cartoon. Tim Burton movie, he's psycho. Yeah, absolutely agree. It's just Tim Burton. Tim Burton, he's got some weird visions, man. I'm not a Tim Burton guy, except for Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I fucking love that movie. It's like one of my favorite movies of all time. And Blake and Ronnie on All the Good Names Are Taken podcast are reviewing that on, I believe it's May 17th, which is my sister's birthday, so I'm going to have to choose between calling my sister that night or watching All the Good Names Are Taken. And sorry, sis. But yeah, no, I'm excited to see them review it. And yeah, Tim Burton just says, his imagery is fantastic. Whether it's Beetlejuice, whether it's Batman, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, like I mentioned, everything he's done. Edward Scissorhands, his imagery is fantastic, but a lot of his movies, as good as they are, they're just not for me. So yeah, he's kind of a weirdo sometimes, but it works. People love it. James Morant says Colin Farrell, Penguin, and Batman, and he's more of a crime boss. Yeah, Colin Farrell, I didn't even know that was Colin Farrell until after the movie, and someone mentioned it. I was like, holy shit. Absolutely crazy. Allie with a good one here. Alfred is always the unsung hero for me in Batman movies. Yeah, Alfred, especially in all these version of Batman movies. I can't remember the guy that plays him, his name, but he's actually who I think of when I play Alfred, or when I think of Alfred. And I know Michael Caine is absolutely awesome in the Nolan movies as Alfred too. But the guy that plays him in these 4 movies here, the Burton movies and then the Schumacher stuff, he's who I think of when I think of Alfred. And he's great. He is definitely great, and he's very underappreciated. I agree. All right. Funniest moment. For me, this is just a moment that made me chuckle. I wouldn't say that this is a really funny movie. It's a pretty bleak movie, actually. But there's a lot of moments that are relatively funny. There's a moment for me in this, and it's towards the end, where, let me pull it up here. I'm calling it dressed as Batman ? Scene. And for me, it's this moment right here. So you got this tender moment where Batman is trying to reach Selina, telling her, you don't have to do this. We don't have to fight. So, he rips off his mask, which apparently is made of rubber. He rips off his mask and to show, he's Bruce Wayne. And all of a sudden, Max Schreck kind of comes to or whatever and, realizes that's Catwoman. And he's like, Selina Kyle, you're fired. And then he looks and he goes, Bruce Wayne? Why are you dressed up as Batman? It just cracks me up the way, it doesn't click for Max Schreck. He's like, Bruce Wayne, why are you dressed up as Batman? And then Michelle Pfeiffer says, because he is Batman, you moron. It's just funny to me. It's very subtle. In this tender moment, we have, this real quick comic relief. It's not thrown in your face. For me, that's my funniest moment. There's some other scenes, where Penguin is, going nuts on the Bat car, which Ronnie mentioned earlier. But for me, this moment just makes me chuckle, and I wanted to give it some attention because I think it's an underrated moment in this movie. Let's see what you guys got going on in the chat here, and then we're going to get to our dumbest moment, which I have a lot to talk about. Dumbest moment here. And then we're going to rate it. So, Ellie says, Michael Gough. That's right. I think that's how you pronounce it, Gough. That's who plays Alfred. Shape of Horror podcast, unsung hero, Pee Wee Herman, and Fantasia agrees. James Morant, his unsung hero, he agrees with Allie, is Alfred. And then Blake with a good point. If Pee Wee doesn't abandon his child, we don't get a movie. Yes, agreed. In Pee Wee's defense, the child ate a fucking cat. So it's, in one hand, it's like, the kid ate a fucking cat. He pulled the cat in there. Now, they also had the kid in a fucking cage. So, nature, nurture combination. So yeah, absolutely agree. All right, let's get to the dumbest moment here. I don't want to talk about this shit. I want to talk about this dumb moment here. My dumbest moment, Rocket Penguins. And hear me out on this. Okay, so essentially the kind of Penguins master plan in this movie. So, these Rocket Penguins are fucking dumb. But they're even dumber when you realize everything that's going around here. So, before we get to the Rocket Penguins, Penguin has this, I don't want to call it elaborate because it's not very elaborate, but he is essentially going to steal and murder the firstborn child of every family in Gotham. He was the firstborn child of Pee Wee Herman, and he was thrown in the river, right, on Christmas. We haven't talked about that yet. This is a movie set at Christmas, which is fascinating. But he is going to steal the firstborn child of every family in Gotham. Batshit crazy. That is dark shit right there. Okay? When he's looking for his parents earlier in the movie, when Oswald's looking for his parents, he's in the Hall of Records, and Max Schreck kind of shoos the reporters away, and you see Oswald, and you assume he's looking for his parents, but he's writing shit down. He's writing down the name of every firstborn child in Gotham. So later in the movie, he can kidnap them. He can send his circus freaks out to kidnap these children, and he does. So they kidnap all these children, right, in the middle of the night. All all of Gotham is at the Max Shreck's ball, which we kind of touched on earlier. And while that's happening, Penguin's goons, his circus freaks, are kidnapping the firstborn child of every family. Dark shit. So Penguin can kill them. He is literally going to kill these kids. But out of nowhere, Batman kind of stops this train, which is a cool scene because the train, the fact that they're stealing these kids on like a circus train, is pretty creepy. It's pretty creepy. But then Batman shows up and essentially sends a letter to Penguin saying, kids can't make it. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, with not really any exposition, Penguin is talking like this picture right here. He's talking to hundreds, maybe thousands of actual real penguins that have rockets strapped to their backs. And they're going to whatever, Central Park or Gotham's version of Central Park to kind of blow up the city. Something happened here. Okay? Something definitely happened. They were going one way with it, and then all of a sudden we have rocket penguins, which are fucking dumb, by the way. You're slowly setting up the fact that, you know, they're going to kill all these children, and then on a dime, they change it without really explaining anything. My guess is, and this is purely speculation, I haven't read any behind the scenes things, my guess is this movie, when it was coming out, I barely remember this, I was young as fuck, but when this movie was coming out, you know, this shit was on Happy Meals, it was, you know, toys, it was everywhere. You know, it was very kid friendly. And remember, this is 1992. My guess is someone from the studio either saw something they filmed. I don't know if they filmed it or saw where it was headed and was like, no, Tim Burton, you can't do this. This will kill our marketing. We can't be selling this shit to children and parents and families, and you're fucking murdering these people. You know, they might do that now, but in 1992, the world was different. You know? So I'm guessing they did a 180, and they said, you got to do something else. And they scrambled and, you know, decided to do these rocket penguins. So that's kind of what I think. So for me, in addition to the dumbness of the aesthetic of a penguins with a bunch of rockets on them, you get the fact that they just kind of changed on a dime and didn't really explain it to the audience. That something's missing there, unless I'm, you know, looking at this too seriously. It's a fucking Batman movie, but for me, some type of exposition is missed there, and I'm guessing it had to be from the studio. I don't know that for a fact or anything like that, but for me, it just doesn't help this scene at all. And then you get the penguins, you know, all walking to, like I said, Central Park, or Gotham's version of Central Park, like I said, and Batman switches their coordinates to go back to this abandoned zoo, which I'll give this movie credit. The abandoned zoo in the Arctic area is an awesome fucking setting, and the visuals, all the visuals in this movie are absolutely fantastic. So I'll give this movie a lot of credit for this setting. You know, even on this picture here, you can see, I mean, this is like the underground sewer part of the zoo in the Arctic section, which is obviously where penguins would be, which is cool. Makes thematic sense. So that is great. But penguins with rockets, when you're setting up for the whole movie that Penguin has this master plan to murder the firstborn child of every family in Gotham, which, like I said, is dark as fuck. You're setting all that up, and then you give us this kind of for a climactic moment. Kind of lame. So for me, that is the dumbest moment. Am I way off on that, guys? Do you think I'm right about, you know, maybe the studio getting involved and telling Tim Burton no? Like I said, I have no factual evidence of that. It's just kind of, you know, when you watch the movie, it just kind of takes a 180. So let's see what you guys got. If there's any dumb moments you guys want me to talk about, let's go here. Shape of Horror podcast, dumbest moment. I ought to have you spayed, you filthy minx. Yeah. That's what Penguin says to Catwoman before he puts the umbrella around her neck and she flies out. That's kind of a ridiculous moment. And what's funny there, you see kind of how dark Penguin is, and how Catwoman, as crazy as she is, she didn't want to go that far in their plan. You know, she's like, I thought you were just gonna scare the Ice Princess. You know, Penguin's like, she looked pretty scared to me, or something like that. And then, you know, says that line that Bud just said. So yeah, I'm with you. James Morant, Penguin screaming when he loses control of the Batmobile. Yeah, I still chuckle a little bit at that, but it's kind of ridiculous too when he's in that trailer too, when he's currently running for mayor. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Allie says, I hate the Rockets and the Penguins. That scene is dumb. Yep. Definitely agree. Fantazi says it was deemed too violent. Yeah, I figured something like that had to happen. Blake says, I love when they show the bottom of the water and the fat clown is still down there. Great continuity. Do they? I didn't realize he was still down there. I do like that. So Blake brings up a good point talking about this fat clown. Before they're going to steal the children of Gotham, Penguin's explaining it to his goons, and there's this fat clown that's been in the movie the whole time. He kind of questions Penguin on that, you know, essentially saying, you know, like what I said, that's pretty dark. And Penguin just kind of takes out his umbrella and shoots the bastard, and he falls in, or he gets dragged or falls into the water there. I didn't realize he's still down there. That's pretty good. That is good continuity. You're right. Fantazi says Tim Burton wanted to go balls to the wall. Yeah, apparently he did. And he was going that way. Let's see here. James Morant says parents complained that this movie was too dark and scary for their kids. Yeah, there was some complaints about that. And you know, Batman '89 was so successful for good reason too, that they just gave Tim Burton all this control, and he made, like I said, a Tim Burton movie with Batman in it. But it works on so many respects. But like I talked about earlier, it might not be the best Batman movie. Morant continues and says, I was never meant to be a kid's movie. That is true. That is true. You know, sometimes parents just assume, oh, Batman, you know, it's a comic book movie. Well, there's Batman and then there's Batman. You know, there's the cartoon. Your kids can go watch the cartoon. Christopher Fantazi says he walked around Batman '89 with a copy of The Dark Knight Returns. He walked around Batman '89. Sorry, I'm not sure. I must have jumped in on a conversation. All right, let's rate this bitch. All right. So, like I said, a lot of things to like in this movie. And as you saw, I have a lot of, you could call them nitpicks. I have a lot of issues with this movie. But it's still, even with all the negative stuff I said, and it's probably 60% negative in here, just because this movie gets so much love, I wanted to kind of make sure I'm talking about the fact that it does have flaws. You know, this is not a perfect movie by any means, but it does such a good job exploring the villains, and that's where Tim Burton excelled. You know, as much as I complained, it's not really a great Batman movie. It is a great movie about two crazy nut jobs, you know, that two freaks essentially for various reasons, you know, that society kind of abandoned. And kind of their villain origin story. And then you throw in Max Schreck, who's kind of a puppet master, and then you throw Batman in there to do his Batman thing, and you got a damn entertaining movie. For me, I give this movie a 6.5, which for a lot of people might not seem like a high grade, but for me that's a good movie. That's a movie that entertains me. I can get entertained by a movie that I would rate a 5 out of 10. You know, for me, sometimes, depends on when I watch this, sometimes for me the flaws stand out a little more than the things I like about this movie, but there is a lot to like about this movie. And even though I said I'm not really a Tim Burton guy, minus a couple things, you know, I like this movie a lot, and it's one of my favorite Tim Burton films. So for me, like I said, 6.5 out of 10. Let's see what you guys rate it. Let's see here. Alley Girl says, you know what's weird is I have never saw a penguin at a circus, or I've never saw penguins at a circus, and I have never saw clowns at a zoo. It's weird they meshed that too. That is weird. That is interesting. Yeah. I can only call that a Tim Burtonism, Allie. But that is an interesting point you bring up. I like it. Good thinking. James Morant says he gives it an 8.6 out of 10, 3.5 stars. Yep, I think probably the general consensus for most people will be right in that range. Like I said, for me it's a little lower because I see some flaws, but there's a lot of good in this movie. And I know for a lot of people, especially because it came out in 92, and this is their version of Batman that they love the most, I know a lot of people will have it, just as high as you. Alley Girl says, I rate this movie at 8.5, so right on cue there with James. Chris Fantazi says, this was the best Batman until Batman Begins. 89 in this. I probably would rate 89 a little higher, but I can see that why people like this movie better. And you're right, after this, until Batman Begins, yeah, I know Batman Forever has its fans. I think a lot of that's driven on nostalgia. Batman and Robin, the less said the better. And then, and then Nolan's Batman is, a whole different animal. It's kind of a Batman more based in reality. And I think I actually like Batman Begins the best of the Nolan trilogy, believe it or not. I know Dark Knight's amazing. I get that, but I'm a Batman Begins guy. I like origin stories, stories of someone becoming something, finding out who they're supposed to be. That's why I like Batman Begins a lot. But yeah, good point. Fantasy also gives this an 8.5 out of 10. And Scott, how you doing? Scott says, I'll be like Grace Randolph and give it a 6. So you're right around with me there, Scott. I'm a little higher. Shape of Horror Podcast says 4 out of 10. Interesting. But we'll have to talk sometime. Are you a fan of Batman 89, bud? Would you rate that higher than this? Or are you just not a Batman guy? Or did this movie just kind of not do it for you? Or did the flaws kind of stand out? All right, let's see where we are in the poll, guys. For next week, 20 votes in. I am ending it in 2 minutes. Looks like The Sandlot is going to take the cake. It's like we're talking baseball next week. Sandlot's awesome. And of course, once again, the one movie I want to win is in last place, The Fugitive. Man. But unless Jurassic Park can make a big comeback here, we are going to be talking The Sandlot next week. There's a lot of good movies in 93. I wanted to put Son-in-Law in there because I love that movie. But I want to do that closer to Thanksgiving. So once it gets close to Thanksgiving, I'll kind of do an episode just on that because that is a great movie. So yeah. Let's see what else we got going in the chat. Fantasy says Batman Begins is amazing. Yep, absolutely agree. Roy, how you doing, Roy? Says Pee-wee is Penguin's father. Yeah, I know. We were just talking about that. It's pretty funny. Pee-wee with like a mustache too, which is you don't see too often. Scott says Katie Holmes is the best part of Batman Begins. Yeah, she was good in there. She was definitely good in there as Rachel. Fantasy says the Great Hambino. Oh yeah. So next week I'm gonna have to get some chew. Maybe I'll get some Big League chew because I don't want to actually chew. Fantasy says no Maggie Gyllenhaal was the worst of the Dark Knight. Yeah, it was hard. It was a hard transition, going from Katie Holmes and Maggie Gyllenhaal. Maggie really couldn't win there because people got attached to Katie Holmes in that first Batman movie. So yeah. Ellie says Son-in-Law is her jam. That's right. Oh, such a good movie. Jay Edwards. Jay, how you doing? Says, yay, Nick. Batman Returns is one of my favorite movies of all time. If Die Hard is a Christmas movie, Batman Returns is mine. Yeah, let's talk about it. It's kind of cool that we have a Batman movie set at Christmas time. And it actually, it doesn't really play a part in the plot, but it's integral throughout the movie. You have the 2 mistletoe scenes that we talked about. the tree lighting at I don't know what you call it, Gotham Square or whatever the hell it's called. The tree lighting there. You have a tree in Bruce Wayne's house that Bruce Wayne is chilling on the couch in front of the fire while he's making Alfred decorate it. So Christmas plays a role in this movie, and it's always in the background throughout this movie, which, like I said, it's pretty cool. Scott says, blame Tom Cruise for Katie Holmes not being in The Dark Knight. Yeah, I can blame Tom Cruise for a lot of things, but we'll add that to the list. Allie says, let's not talk about Die Hard because she lost Jake Blaster's trivia last night, and Bud's trivia. Sorry, Bud. But it was on Jake Blaster's channel, so Allie struggled. She'll probably get the next one. She'll probably win the next one, knowing Allie. She can be studying all week. Roy says, Nick, what do you think about Batman straight up killing people in this one? Yeah, that is a good point, Roy. I didn't touch on that at all. So there's this misconception. I don't read comics, unfortunately, so I don't have the full comic knowledge, but there is this perception, we'll say, that Batman doesn't kill people. Especially in the Nolan trilogy, it hits it hard. But in this movie, Batman's fucking murdering people. There is a guy at the beginning where Batman, essentially uses the Batmobile to light his ass on fire. It's interesting. So he just has no problem killing people, and you don't even think twice when you see it. But the more you think about it, it's like, yeah, Batman's he's murdering people. Yes, there are people doing bad things, but someone in this circus freak group or whatever is, kind of just vandalizing things at this point. This guy isn't like killing anyone or anything, and Batman kills him. It's pretty funny. And once again, that's Tim Burton. Tim Burton, it's a dark movie. It's a bleak, dark movie. Shocking Poetry. How you doing, Shocking Poetry says, Christopher Walken was a great villain in Batman Returns. Yeah, Christopher Walken plays, when he needs to be kind of like a condescending asshole, he's brilliant at it. He's got great hair in this movie too. I agree with you. Christopher Walken, I'm not the biggest Walken guy, but he is great in this movie as Max Schreck. Blake with a hot take here. This is my least favorite of the first four. So you like this less than Batman and Robin, Blake, huh? Interesting. I said it last week because Scott likes Freddy's Dead, and I spent an hour just bashing Freddy's Dead, right? I said it last week. If you like a movie that everyone else hates, like that fucking movie with pride. I like a lot of shitty movies. That's okay. So Blake, it's okay. But I am curious on why you like Batman and Robin more than Batman Returns. I'd be curious to hear that sometime. Maybe you guys can do some type of Batman ranking or something like that. It's not horror, so you could be into that. But yeah, that is interesting. Jay Edwards says, Nick, as of 2019, Andrew Bernansky, who played Chip Schreck, he still has the portrait of the film in the film of him and Max. That's awesome. That is awesome. But as of 2019, he did. That's cool. How do you know that, Jay? Did you see some documentary or something? That's interesting. That's cool. Chris Fantesi says he loves Underworld. Interesting. I've never seen Underworld. Interesting. But hey, there's nothing wrong with liking movies, guys. It's all subjective. Blake says, I need to rewatch this one for sure. As a kid, I didn't understand a lot of the politics, but I love the others. And then he continues on, I was young and like Alicia Silverstone. That makes sense. That definitely makes sense. And this was, Batman and Robin was just a couple of years, I think, maybe 1 or 2 years after Clueless, right after Silverstone blew up, and it's like, oh man, we gotta have a Batgirl. I get it. All right, guys. Let's check the poll, see if Sandlot's still winning, and then I'm gonna call it a night. Sandlot wins. So next week we will be talking The Sandlot. I'm gonna have to rewatch this. I'm gonna have to, get my Benny the Jet Rodriguez speed going to go through that movie. I think what's his face is in there. Dennis Leary, I think, is in that movie. Plays like the main kid's stepdad or whatever, right? James Earl Jones. Sandlot's a classic. So yeah, I'm excited to talk that next week. That's it for me, guys. Thanks for watching. The chat was very lively tonight. That always helps these solo live streams go a little smoother. You guys are fantastic. Thanks for bringing all your comments and everything. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys had a great Monday. I hope your Tuesday is also great. Tomorrow night, right on this channel here, my friend Bud and I are going to be debuting our new show, Take It to the Grave. We are talking Halloween. Everyone loves talking Halloween. At least my viewers do. Top 10 moments from the David Gordon Green trilogy. If you want to bring your own lists, we are going to read them as we go. So, yeah, that's it. That's it for me, guys. Seriously, take care. Appreciate it. See you guys tomorrow. If you're not busy, if you're busy, fuck you. I'm kidding, guys. I'm kidding. See you tomorrow.